I'm gonna be so honest. I have tried to film this video 3 times. Every single time I lose the book. And I spend like 30 minutes to an hour looking for the book, and it discourages me so bad that I just give up. So this is lucky try number 3, and today we do have the book. Let's get into it. Welcome to my reading corner, where everyone is welcome. Today we are talking about a book I've read almost a year ago, but still think about today. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman. Now, this is a short book, just over 200 pages, but don't let the length fool you. This story is dense with emotion and philosophy and mystery. You will want to finish this book just trying to understand what is going on. This book follows a young girl trapped in an underground bunker with 39 other women. They are guarded by mysterious men, and none of them know why they're there, how they got there, or where they are. One day the guards disappear, and what happens next forces the protagonist and us as readers to confront the deepest human questions. Who am I? What is freedom? And what is life and humanity without context? Now, I know many of you just want to know what's going on in this book, and I'm happy to oblige you with many spoilers. If you don't want any spoilers, please fast forward to the timestamp showing right now to where I will discuss many of the themes taking place in this book and some of my theories. Our protagonist, referred to as the girl, lives in an underground bunker with 39 other women. The girl has lived there for as long as she remembers, and most of the women that are much older believe that it is a complete mistake that she is even in there with them, given how much younger she is than they are. The older women remember life before getting to the bunker, but have no recollection of how they got there. Life in the bunker is very mundane. The women have mats to sleep on and a stove to cook whatever random assortment of foods the guards give them. The guards watch from above the prison and never speak to the women. They don't even speak to each other. They only intervene when the women try to end it, or if they try to physically touch one another, even a hug. They do this by using whips and weird clicking noises, but like I said, they never speak to the women. They are always watching from above. The guards do rotate shifts and bring the women food through a food hatch near the side of their cell, but that's all they do. Marching, marching, marching all day and night. Our protagonist, the girl, is treated like a child by the other women. The other women tell her bits and pieces of what life was like before being in the bunker, but overall don't want to tell her too much about a life she will never live, a world she will never experience. For example, they don't want to teach her math or how to read because they think she will never use those skills. Some of the women are very kind to her and others are very cold. Think of the girl's demeanor as a child who had no parents, never had anyone else to play with, and only learns how to interact with others by observing the other women. She's very curious about people, life, the world, and the women's life before coming to the bunker. One day, the girl learns what I would consider how to daydream or dissociate for a very long time. She does this to entertain herself and dreams up weird scenarios where she's escaping and almost runs into one of the younger male guards. Given that she doesn't understand emotions or even what it means to be excited, she enjoys the emotion it brings her to daydream, and she also likes having a secret place to escape away from the women, all to herself. For a while, the girl takes pleasure in staring intently at one guard, hoping to see if after hours and hours it'll get a rise out of him, which it never does. But while she's staring and getting lost in her mind, she also learns how to count her heartbeats. The girl tells the other women of her new skill, and they use this to finally measure time, something they've never been able to measure. This leads them to learn that they don't live by a regular schedule. They had always thought that they were living awake 12 hours and asleep 12 hours. But after being able to measure time, they find that they are being woken and told to go to sleep at random intervals. One day, when the guards are in the middle of giving them food through the hatch, an ear-shattering siren goes off and the guards quickly leave. The girl takes quick action and grabs the key that's in the hatch to give them food and then opens their prison cells. The women are terrified to leave the bunker, but the protagonist takes charge and encourages everyone to go up together. When they get upstairs, the group finds themselves in a very desolate landscape with rolling hills as far as the eyes can see, but strangely no guards. There's no vehicles driving away in the distance, no helicopters floating away in the sky, no guards running in the distance, which doesn't make sense for the amount of time it took them to get out of their cage in their bunker and up the stairs. It's almost as if the guards have vanished, and taking in more of this landscape, there's very little vegetation, no animals, no bugs, nothing. The women are freaked out and decide to camp outside of the bunker house because they fear that the guards will come back at any moment. They realize that the house and bunker had ample food storages that they can live off of, and they also discover a very small stream nearby that they can bathe in. Time carries on, days and days, and they finally come to the conclusion that the guards are just not coming back. So they decide to explore and see if they can find civilization. They pack up and go down the road that is in front of the house that has the bunker, and they walk and walk until they find another bunker. This bunker looks exactly like the one they lived in, and when they go down, they find a cage filled with 40 men, but they are all dead. This bunker was not lucky enough to get the keys to their freedom. They decide to take some food from the bunker and continue on with their journey. They continue to find more and more of these identical bunkers, some with men, some with women, and everyone is always dead. After many years of exploring, they decide to set up a home. Many of the women are getting old and can't walk as far, and many have lost hope that they will ever find civilization. They send some smaller groups to continue exploring, but they never find anything. The protagonist, being much younger than the other women, wants to continue exploring, but decides to stay. One woman dies of an undiagnosed sickness, and another offs herself. More and more of the women are aging and suffering. One of the women asks another to end her suffering with a knife, to which the woman says she doesn't have the balls to do it. The girl offers to do this instead because she lacks the emotion to feel remorse about doing it. Over the years, the girl kills all of her suffering companions until she is the only one left. The girl then decides to continue on her ventures.
It's not clocking to you that I'm standing on business, is it?
Her curiosity is that of a child that we met in the beginning of the story. She finds more and more bunkers until she finds a bus. On the bus, she finds the decomposed bodies of what looks like the guards. They all have the exact same thing in their backpack: a gun, alcohol, and a gardening book. No answers though, just more questions, like where was this bus going? The girl, who is not a girl anymore, continues to explore until she finds a hidden bunker. This bunker is nice.
This is nice. This shit here. I like this.
She teaches herself how to read and write and finally gets to understand some of the comforts of humanity. For example, it has a mirror for which she sees her reflection in for the first time in her life. There's carpet and warm water, but everything is still a mystery. She lives out the remainder of her years in this special bunker, just reflecting on life, isolation, and what was going on. Oh wait, but I forgot, this was mentioned in the first few pages of the book, that she would die with no answers. See, here's my book. Anyway, as I write, this is page 5. As I write these words, my tale is over. Everything around me is in order, and I have fulfilled the final task I set myself. It only took me a month, which has perhaps been the happiest month of my life. I do not understand that. After all, what I was describing was only my strange existence, which hasn't brought me much joy. Is there a satisfaction in the effort of remembering that provides its own nourishment? And is what one recollects less important than the act of remembering? That is another question that will remain unanswered. I feel as though I am made of nothing else. And that's the book. Crazy, right?
Oh, really? That sucks.
So before we dive in, let's talk about the author. Jacqueline Harpman is from Belgium, and for her career, she was a psychoanalyst who wrote this book in 1995. Her family was Jewish, and as a child, they fled to Morocco to escape the atrocities happening during World War II when the Nazis invaded. Coming from a background shaped by World War II and being a psychoanalyst, it's no surprise that this book leans heavily into identity, isolation, and meaning. But I'll circle back to this. Now let's discuss some themes. This book has many, and I'm not going to be able to get to them all. This book really made me sit with what it means to live. It doesn't give you answers, and I think that's part of the point. Sometimes there's no explanations for why things are the way they are as humans, and this can be terrifying. I feel like as humans, we thirst for purpose. We want our life to have meaning, because if not, what is the point of our existence? I think this book toys with the idea that what if there is no reason we go through what we go through? What if there's no reason for existence? Perhaps we get these answers in death, but perhaps not. It's natural to believe that life is about making a lasting impact or leaving some grand legacy. But is it? Without purpose, who are we? If there is no point to human existence, specifically if there was no point for your human existence, would you live life differently? After reading this book, I was tormented with trying to figure out why. Why were they there? How did they get there? Where did the guards go?
What was the reason? What was the reason? What was the reason?
And I think that's the point. There may be a reason, but in life, a lot of people die without getting answers, especially for their suffering. Reflecting on the author's life, I feel this directly relates to the Holocaust. Millions of Jewish people were murdered for no reason. I imagine that living through this history as a young girl and witnessing so many people unnecessarily killed would lead Jacqueline Harpman to think about why bad things happen to people. Sometimes, unfortunately most of the time, there is no good reason. But when it's happening to you, you want there to be some sort of logical explanation for why. Whether it's a specific demographic, randomly targeted by an oppressive and exploitative group, or a young girl randomly picked to be kidnapped and thrown into an experiment, the reason you were picked might not exist, and the suffering will never be justified. There are so many more themes woven into this book, and I'm gonna just talk about one more. Please share any other themes that you caught in the comments. I know I completely glazed over the dynamics of the other women, but let's talk about the title, I Who Have Never Known Men. I believe I relates to the protagonist, and men is men in a literal sense, given that she never meets or truly interacts with a man, and has no concept of gender and what it means to be a man versus a woman. But I think the title also has a much deeper meaning. The protagonist is a blank slate. She's never known the outside world. She's never been taught what's cool. She's never really had a relationship, platonic or romantic. So the book asks, what are we without culture, without influence? Are we still human? Can you be a woman without knowing what a man is? I'd call this book I Who Have Never Known Mankind. Now let's talk about some theories. I have many, and I would love to hear yours as well if you've read it, so please add them to the comments. Additionally, if you haven't already, please like and subscribe. So my first theory is that they are not on Earth. I believe that the women and the girl are from Earth, but that this book does not take place on Earth. Here's why I think this. The planet's landscape is barren with no animals. I think it's safe to say they traveled for at least 30 years and never ran into anything. In fact, they frequently ran into bunkers that they had already visited, which makes me think that this planet is smaller to traverse than ours. Does that make sense? Like, it's smaller than Earth, so you can get around its circumference or whatever way much faster than you would on Earth. And if this was Earth, they would have ran into some hint of civilization, even if it was long gone. But the women and the girl only ever find more bunkers. My second theory is that there is some sort of civilization or more people, but it's likely underground. One of the biggest questions I had about this book is how was there electricity in all of the bunkers? There are no electricity poles outside that they mention, so it makes me assume that there's some energy source somewhere that they never find, which means it's likely underground. And similar to the bunker that she finds at the end of the story, I feel like it's likely that there are probably a few more like that. Plus the bus and the roads that seemingly go nowhere, I'm imagining like a secret hatch that gets them into the underground planes of this world where there was more going on. Now, considering these two theories, I think that this was some attempt to colonize a new planet by Earth. Now, the bunker for women and men were likely to repopulate the planet, which would explain why the guards didn't want the women to comfort each other, if you get what I mean. Regarding the guards, I still cannot think of a logical explanation for how they disappeared. The only explanation is that this is a more advanced planet that has some form of UFO that can like literally poof people in and out, because they couldn't even find footprints. I also think that the guards on the bus were there much longer than the guards that disappeared, because I would have thought that those guards would have disappeared with the others. So I think they had been there longer. So I'm going with the overall theory that this was just some crazy experiment that went wrong or just got bailed on. Now let's wrap up. If you're trying to get back into reading, I highly recommend this book. It's great for pulling someone out of a reading slump, and since it's so short, you can body it in 2 days. I kid you not. It's short but gripping, and you will want to keep reading to know what happens. And as I said before, this is the kind of book that you will think about for a long time. If you've read the book or you pick it up, please leave a comment and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear how you interpreted it, what it made you feel, and whether it raised any big questions in your own life, even how you would respond in this scenario. Thanks for joining my small corner of the world, and until next time.